Friends, family will be receiving at home after this morning's service. The address is 15686 Lowell Lane. That's right off of Lowell, 15686 Lowell Lane. From the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. From Psalm 90. O God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace, God. You redeem the soul of your servants. None who trust in you shall be desolate. These words from a Jewish sage. In our tradition, he's known as Ben Sirach. In Christian tradition, he's known as Ecclesiasticus. Do not fear death. We are destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Bewail the dead. Do not hide your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory rest, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest better than constant sickness. Seek not to understand what is too difficult for you. Search not for what is hidden from you. Be not overoccupied with what is beyond you, for you have been shown more than you can understand. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are a person's few days when measured in eternity. The good things in life last for limited days, but a good name endures forever.
Rabbi, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have more programs for folks who would like to have the cottage prayer in front of them. If you would just raise your hand, we will very quietly pass them out. Thank you.
I'll wait. expect people may be able to share. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. In Bonnie's memory, begin with words from her beloved husband, Miss Mickey, and her daughter, Haley. There's a railing on this side and on that side. It might be easy for you.
Good morning. I'd kind of been dreading speaking. Speaking is not one of my favorite things to do, but Bonnie had always prepared me. And looking around, it's not like I'm talking to a bunch of strangers. I know everybody here, and it feels good to know that I'm amongst friends. When I decided I was going to talk, I made some notes for myself, things I wanted to cover. We'd been married for 48 years. We considered ourselves partners. And I got on Bonnie's computer and realized that she had written her own obituary. Among some other things, she wrote letters to the girls. She knew it was coming. We'd talked about it, and both of us kind of knew. I'm not saying I was ready for it, but I knew it was coming. But I looked at my notes and I realized that in her obituary, she's covered everything, and I'm going to read her obituary and add a few comments of my own to it. The obituary of Bonnie Lee Swade. Bonnie was born Kansas City, Missouri at Menorah Hospital to Sidney and Dorothy Hyken. She married Mickey Swade October 15th, 1976. The couple raised 4 children, Amy, Brett, Haley, and Zach. I used to tease her, and, to be honest, piss her off by saying that she proposed to me when she said I could not spend the night unless we were married. There were children in the house, and I told her I accept. She spent 40 years working for the Olathe School District, 30 as a teacher of English, and 10 as a school counselor. Bonnie was a candidate for Kansas Teacher of the Year and served as secretary of ONEA. She received the Buck O'Neill Award in 2008. After retirement in 2009, she subbed in the school district for another 7 years. What she left out of there was at some point she wanted to teach older kids, and she got a job at JUCO for several years teaching public speaking and interpersonal communications. Don't ask. I forgot a long time ago what, but she thoroughly enjoyed teaching at JUCO. Beth Torah was her place of worship, where she served as past president of Women of Beth Torah and served on the temple board for several years as secretary and a board member. Bonnie enjoyed many hobbies such as reading, writing, baking, knitting, and art. She loved to experiment making baked goods. Her favorite ingredient was chocolate. She was a true chocoholic. And I might mention, I guess next week I'm going to end up having to buy a loaf of bread, and that's the first time I've bought a loaf of bread in several years. We always had bread baked by Bonnie. Over the years, she volunteered at Lansing Correctional Facility, Children's Mercy Hospital, Spiritual Wellness Volunteer, Caring Connection Team, Beth Torah Gift Shop, Cornerstone of Care, and CASA. And she volunteered for these things. Sometimes she had to go and visit the people at their home. And when I saw where the address was, we might want to say some of the addresses were questionable. So I always took her. I drove her there. I waited in the car and drove her back home. That's just the way we operated. She and her husband started SAS MOCAN, Suicide Awareness Survivors Support, Missouri, Kansas, a 501c3 organization. They were co-founders and coordinated many walks at Luce Park and other activities. She also facilitated a support group for suicide survivors at Advent Hospital, even when it was Shawnee Mission Hospital. We facilitated that support group. It's been a little over 21 years now that Bonnie and I facilitated that support group. She loved to travel and explored many countries outside the United States. Her favorite way of traveling was by cruise ship. They enjoyed trips to South America, China, Italy, Greece, Vietnam, Cambodia, Portugal, and other places. And what she didn't mention here was when the kids were little, Bonnie and I always took 2 vacations every year. 1 week we would take the kids and go somewhere, and 1 week Bonnie and I would go, just the 2 of us, somewhere. And it always worked well. We were a team. Bonnie was a dog lover, and during her life enjoyed the company of many fur babies. Her favorite was her beloved dog, Cece, with whom she volunteered at Children's Mercy Hospital in their pet and wellness program. Cece was a dog that was Delta certified, which meant that we could take the dog up to children's rooms, and the dog could get on the bed and let the child pet the dog. It was special. She was so proud of her children, Amy, Brett, Haley, and Zach, and their significant others, Keith, Jason, and Zach's ex, Sarah. Her grandchildren, Max, Megan, Jonah, Sydney, Zoe, and Eli, were of great joy. Their son, Brett, who died by suicide, was a reminder that we love, we give, and we accept that which happens with grace. If you want to honor Bonnie's memory, please do something fun with your family or friends. Go to a special place and everyone in your family likes. Just enjoy each other's company and give your cell phones a rest. Talk, hug, and just enjoy being together, and of course, eat something chocolate for her. Friendship and relationships were very important to her. She cared about others and had many friends. All of those relationships impacted her life. Bonnie would like to thank the many people in her life and wants them to know how meaningful they were to her. Their friendship, caring, and love meant the world to Bonnie. And I want to end with something that Bonnie wrote that I really liked. One day you're going to hug your last hug, kiss your last kiss, and hear someone's voice for the last time. But you never know when the last time will be. So every day, so live every day as if it were the last time you will be with the person you love. I thank you all. Thank everybody for coming and being here today.
Gonna try. Hi, everyone. I didn't read what my mom wrote, so some of the things I wrote on my own, which is kind of funny. Okay. First, our family is so beyond grateful to have all of you here with us today to celebrate our little Bonnie Lee. By the amount of people here, it is clear she was loved by so many. She truly has left a massive imprint on so many lives. My mom and I had a very special relationship. She was my first friend and my forever best friend. When I was born, my mom always told me she always wanted a little girl. I think she definitely got more than she bargained for. When I was little, one of our favorite things to do was bake together. My mom always let me sit and climb on the counter while she was baking. We laughed and always had the best time. For my son Jonah's bar mitzvah, my mom and I baked almost all of the sweets for the sweet table, as well as she made individual challahs for each person. It was so personal and such a bond's way to add her touch. As I got older, even an adult, there were times when she was baking, I would still hop up on the counter just to be with her. These memories will stay in my heart forever. My mom was the best teacher in life. She taught patience and perseverance, and life isn't always fair. As an English teacher, she would bring home lots of papers to be graded. From a very young age, she would hand me a red pen and let me help her grade her papers. I learned you always start a sentence with a capital letter and make sure you end your sentences with punctuation. Make it make sense, Haley, she would say. I know it sounds simple, but you would be surprised how many people don't know those simple rules. The truth about Bon Bon is she was very simple. She loved her family, the beach, the sun, a vodka Gibson back in the day, and most importantly, chocolate. One of my most treasured gifts from my mom came in the form of a writing. The night before I got married, I stayed at my parents' house. My mom and I stayed up late that night talking. I said goodnight and went up to the room. I crawled into bed and found a journal tucked underneath my pillow. It was titled Life Lessons. The handwritten journal consisted of many meaningful pages. These pages found focus on lessons I had encountered throughout my life and the outlook I had on the situation with her realistic perception. I sat in that room on that night and cried. The time and effort she put into the journal is something I never thought I would have. She once again caught me off guard, but wanted me to have it in writing. I love the journal and refer to it often. She even left a few empty pages so I could continue to write my own life lessons. My mom was my best friend and my forever confidant. I could talk to her about anything. She was never judgmental, just realistic. She wouldn't sugarcoat anything. She would tell me how she felt about it with understanding I was not always going to like her response. I believe in my heart it's one of the reasons we were so close. I knew no matter what, if I followed my decision or hers, she would always support me. If I got knocked down, there was always a life lesson to learn. I am scared now that she's gone, that when I need her advice, I'm not sure how she's going to get it to me, but I believe she will find a way. Mush, thank you for the best 50 years of my life. You have allowed me to spread my wings and fly, and I hope you're proud of my family and your grandchildren. They will always be in awe of you. Dad, thank you for being the jelly to Mom's peanut butter and the chocolate and cherry on the top of her sundae. You two were meant for each other. I know from the bottom of my heart we are all going to miss you like crazy, Mom. You have been the best mom to Amy, Brett, Zach, and I, as well as Keith, Jason, and Sarah. The absolute best Phoebe to Max and Megan, Jonah, Sydney, and Zoe and Eli. It is now time, Mom, to let you go. You are free of all your pain, and I hope you find your smile back. Please give my brother a long, tight squeeze. I know he's been waiting for you for a long time. I just want you to know that I love you until the day after forever. Higher than the sky, deeper than the ocean, and then some.
Rabbi Jonathan Rudnick, the community chaplain, where Bonnie was a volunteer for many years, will say a few words and lead us in a psalm. And I believe you have a 23rd psalm on that handout, if you have that sheet.
Let's read together in English. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And Bonnie Lee Swade shall dwell in the house of God forever. Now in Hebrew. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenaleni. Nafshi shoveh, nafshi shoveh, yancheni b'maglei למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, לפני שולחן. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צוערי. תשענת בשמן ראשי, תשענת בשמן ראשי, תשענת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ותשב בבית אדוני. בני לי סווייד לאורך ימים. It's a strange line in this psalm that goodness and kindness, tov and chesed, will not just follow me, but they will pursue me, almost run after me. And in Bonnie's case, that makes sense because they had to run after her to catch up, because she was bringing goodness and kindness before goodness and kindness could even get there. And like many of you, I was so sad to hear from Mickey last week. Not only, but also because over more than 10 years, I've gotten to know Bonnie as a spiritual care volunteer for the JFS chaplaincy program, who was so dedicated and so faithful and had such a strong relationship and commitment to Jewish patients and staff and families at Shawnee Mission Medical Center, or Advent Health of Shawnee Mission. And I miss her already greatly. She became a friend and an important support for me as the community chaplain. And she, as I've gotten messages from many of the other spiritual care volunteers, is already and will continue to be missed. May her memory be for a blessing. And toda rabah, thank you, Bonnie, for all that you have done, but more than all that you have done, for all that you were and are and will continue to be. Amen.
What can we know of death, we who do not understand life? We study the seed and the cell, but the power deep within them will always elude us. That we cannot understand, we accept life as a gift of God, and yet death, life's twin, we face with fear. But why be afraid? Death is a haven for the weary and a relief for the sorely afflicted. We are safe in death as in life. There's no pain in death. There's only the pain of those who remain, of the loved ones who recall their shared loves, and that we ourselves fear to die. Calm us, O God, when we cry out in our fear and our grief. Turn us anew toward life and turn us toward the world. Awaken us to the warmth of human love, the warmth of human love. That Bonnie was so exemplary of that love and brought it to so many. We shall fear no evil. We affirm your kingdom of life. The world is a poorer place today. Now that Bonnie Lee Swade is no longer physically present in it, we inhabit a poorer place. Her impact surely remains in her family, many lives that she touched. Memories of Bonnie will most certainly influence behaviors of those who knew and loved her, and also among those who benefited from her extraordinary service to our community, who perhaps have no idea where the blessings that they experience have come from. Bonnie touched thousands of lives, thousands. With SAS, with Women of Beth Torah, with the marches, with the visiting in hospitals, with her 40 years of school teaching in public school, when teaching at Johnson County Community College, simply with her inspiring presence. So why isn't Bonnie Swade a name better known in the world with all that she did for so many? Over the years, I have watched as the true heroes of life, those who selflessly, without regret, improve other people's lives, asking for nothing in return, who believe that life is truly about service, and that's why we're here. Who not only have a vision, but follow up that vision with action. Simply build a better world without recognition for their efforts and without regret. Bonnie perhaps is the best and the bravest of those heroes. She certainly exemplifies loving and altruism and ideals. I don't know if Bonnie possessed the visions that she perhaps didn't act upon. I guess she had many that didn't get fulfilled. But when she saw something that needed to be done, Bonnie stepped in to do it. She saw a need, she moved to fill in the gap. An intangible vision of a world of beauty. When Brett took his own life, Bonnie turned the silence over mental illness and the boundless grief over suicide into programs to openly discuss mental illness and provide a community of mourners for those who remain and are grieving, but too often before that, grieving silently and without support. These are astounding achievements, astounding, that to my mind never received the recognition that they deserved. But Bonnie was not about recognition. Bonnie only sought to create programming for those who despair, require loving attention. She wanted to retrieve for them the remains of the happiness and the satisfaction of living, which should be the inheritance of all people, and yet so often people suffer. We now live in a world in which selfishness is proclaimed to be the purpose of living. Look out for number one, the book said, and that number one is you, the self. Bonnie possessed the wisdom of the ages, in which looking out exclusively for self is a pathway to self-centeredness. It's an abysmal destruction of the meaning of life. Altruism Unrequited loving provides the meaning necessary to survive the daily assaults of a world in which there is overwhelming pain for too many. Were Bonnie Swade replicable, we would not suffer attacks on the living, but would come to one another's aid to lift up one another, to find love and friendship and salvation in daily life, because that's what Bonnie found and Bonnie created. It's the loving embrace. It's the helping hand that redeems us from despair. And somehow Bonnie not only knew that, but created activities to make that real, to provide it for herself and her family, and way beyond that, to stretch out a hand to our community. Bonnie possessed so many talents, it's difficult to list them all. For one, she was a constant baker, as you've heard. Her home never lacked cookies. And Mickey commented multiple times that he has only 2 of Bonnie's breads left. Remained frozen. He's going to have to go out and buy bread, particularly challah, something he's not done for years. Bonnie was always baking one thing or another. Knowing the wonderful smells of baked goods, I imagine the fragrances of living in that home, in Bonnie and Mickey's home. Walking in the door and smelling fresh bread, fresh cookies in the oven, imagining the taste soon to follow. Sounds to me as though baking was Bonnie's relaxation, not a chore. But that demonstrates clearly that for Bonnie, even relaxing meant improving the lives of those whom she loved. And then, of course, there was Bonnie's near addiction to chocolate. Oh my God. Sharing that addiction myself, along with, I know, millions of others, I must say I understand the shrine in Bonnie's kitchen to the god of the cocoa bean, with the icons and idols of devotion to the marriage of cocoa bean, cocoa butter, and sugar. Bonnie was never without chocolate, thank God. And the story of her Hershey's Kisses dispenser, a Hershey's Kisses dispenser, where the kids could press and get a Hershey's Kiss by pressing down on the dispenser in the kitchen. It would have been enough if she just had that. It simply demonstrates what everyone knew. Bonnie shared an absolute love of chocolate with the world. I suppose we could compose a new version of Dayenu with Passover coming. Here's the version for Bonnie. Had she only founded SAS and not been a teacher, Dayenu. Had she been a teacher and not been a counselor, Dayenu. Had she been a counselor and not a baker, Dayenu. Had she been a baker and not been a painter, Dayenu. It would have been enough. And like in the Seder, I'm sure we could go on and have 15 verses of the song. All over the walls in Bonnie and Mickey's living room are the extraordinary watercolor paintings with colors that simply pop out and create an indelible image in the imagination. They're gorgeous. Sceneries, objects to my mind so filled with accurate details and colors to brighten not only the room, but I remember them even now. Those colors you carry with you out of the room. And I know many folks who are home artists, but Bonnie's watercolors are truly worthy of an art fair and to decorate other people's homes as well. What an eye, what an imagination she possessed. Bonnie produced baking smells, art for the eye, and actions for the moral conscience. An outstanding woman worthy of public acclaim, and yet satisfied to simply produce blessings for the world without fanfare, without public reward. Quite extraordinary. After teaching for 30 years, Bonnie returned to school and received a degree in counseling, giving another decade to her students' lives, plus 7 more years after that, substituting part-time. But as a counselor, to help them with their adjustments to the world, think about it. Not just the knowledge found in books, but the knowledge that comes from sharing yourself, your deep inner self, with your pains and your sorrows, and yes, your joys. You could share that with others and show others who are hurting the way that she had walked. As Bonnie said, her loss of Brett, his taking his own life, indelibly changed her. Those who have lost loved ones to taking their own life never completely cease asking themselves about their role in that. What more could they have done? What signs did they miss? But Bonnie, unlike others, turned those questions into helping the grieving to resolve these issues for themselves, or at least receive the comfort of discussing and being in the presence of those whose lives mean walking the same path of trauma, and in sharing that experience, to receive some human relief, some companionship, some caring, some balm. We must never forget Bonnie's example that which can be forgotten, that which cannot be forgotten, at least can be soothed by sharing that pain with others who know your perspective. Even if the sharing cannot overcome the reality of the pain, at least, we have the comfort of others who walk the path with us. Bonnie and Mickey's biggest project was SAS, Suicide Awareness Survivor Support, and the walks to fund the projects to help those who remained with the pain of a loved one who took his own life. 2 decades of walks, bi-weekly discussions where they led people who had walked this path, lifelines to the survivors who could count on an understanding ear from someone who experienced their existential anxiety over love and grief and feelings of guilt. The questioning, the uncertainty, and the knowledge that as much as each person's journey is unique, there were others walking that same path and walking it together, holding hands. Of course, Bonnie always had her dogs and also the parakeets, and those brought joy. Most joyously with the family vacations, as Mickey discussed, one for Mickey and Bonnie each year and one with all the kids. There was the rigged out conversion van, all the kids together in the back or right behind them. Watching movies, it was a thing in cars later on, but Mickey and Bonnie originated it early on where the kids could sit in back and watch movies. Swimming in pools, being together with folks in other vans. There was the van club with other families gathering once a year. Yes, Bonnie and Mickey made the kids learn to take on the responsibility of cleaning their own clothes from an early age. I think the age that was mentioned was 5, but I don't understand how you get clothing into the washing machine at 5 years old. And then they had to write in their own journals every night on family vacations. Can you imagine? Oh yes, kids, vacation's over. Now write down what we did today. I don't know how they pulled it off. Bonnie herself was an inveterate journal keeper, but also the fun times together. With slightly unmentionable, but years later, great stories. I'm not going to tell them. And memories of time together with people who love one another without stint. There were holiday meals like for Seder, and Bonnie could always be counted on to add a stranger to the family mix. After the years of visiting prisoners in Lansing, Bonnie might invite a person that they formerly visited in Lansing to the family meal. Such gracious hospitality is, quite frankly, unthinkable for many people. Invite someone who had been incarcerated to our home? Not on your life. Bonnie did it. Bonnie knew and understood people, and her heart and her mind were always open to humanity, the humanity of the person in her sight, whether at a hospital or a discussion or Lansing prison. When Bonnie taught Shakespeare, she dressed up in costume. She was always available to imaginatively help others. One year on Christmas Eve, Bonnie and Mickey had to open their own home to Christmas Eve for a discussion session because every place else was closed, but there were people who needed to talk. They first started a group discussion at Solace House in Kansas City. It expanded until up to 34 people attended those weekly discussions. An unbelievable handout to the community. Family members helped also by participating in the walks that raised money, which helped to fund support activities for those grieving suicide. Before Bonnie and Mickey, these activities did not exist. Bonnie brought people together with her vision, including a dove release in those walks and reading a necrology at the walk to inspire hope alongside of remembrance. that the name should not be forgotten. Finally, among the most desperate children in our world are those who are helped by CASA, court-appointed special advocates. I've always thought it takes a really special person to work at CASA, to volunteer. But the folks I've known, that was their volunteer activity, not one of a half dozen or more volunteer activities. Bonnie helped at least 4 different families over many years. Remember that these cases on average take about 2 years apiece, often in different circumstances and neighborhoods. As Mickey said, Bonnie, let me drive you down there. Then you could go into the house. Add to that Bonnie's work with women of Beth Torah, with the board of this congregation, holding an office in Women of Beth Torah, as well as baking for Oneg Shabbat sweets. One wonders where in the world Bonnie got the time to be such an incredible blessing to so many people. To Mickey, Bonnie's beloved husband, constant partner for 49 years. To Judy and Robbie, to Amy, Haley, Zach, Keith, Jason, Sarah, to grandchildren Max and Megan and Jonah and Sydney and Zoe and Eli. You've possessed a shining gem that will reflect in you, and from you for as long as you live. Thank you for sharing with us, all of us, this world of overwhelming goodness, kindness, a vision of wife and mother-in-law and grandmother, community organizer and friend. Bonnie's body is gone, but her impact will continue through you. And all those whose lives she touched. Zecher tzadeket livracha. May the memory of this righteous woman be a blessing among us for generations to come. From the book of Job, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevorach. The Lord is given, the Lord is taken away. Praise be God's name. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzalmo v'zan etchem b'tuvo v'himit etchem b'din, v'atah b'torchachel chayei olam. Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in your divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, who causes all of us to die, who plants immortal life within us. Praised are you, O Lord, the righteous judge. The dust returns to the earth as it was, the spirit returns to God, the God who gave it. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed Bonnie Lee Swade. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come, that no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind can grasp it. Still, it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the sorrow which loss inflicts is a measure of a love stronger than death. That we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be as children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to that trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, we commit all that is precious to us into your keeping. If you feel able, please rise for El Mali Rachamim in the Kaddish prayer.
First in English, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Bonnie Lee Swade, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say amen.
Amen.
El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamitzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina. במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת בני לי סווייד שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Cottage prayer is a doxology. It's a praise of God's name. It's been recited by Jews for family for at least the last 2,000 years. It's an affirmation of the goodness of life. And why do we recite it now, at this moment when the goodness of life feels so distant to us? The answer is that we know that we all walk this path. We give thanks for the order of life. We give thanks for the blessings of life. We give thanks for the love that we shared. We give thanks for the memory that will continue to inspire us, not just today, but for days and weeks and months, years and generations to come. The Kaddish prayer in Bonnie's memory. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divrah Chirutei v'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, B'gala u'bizman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach le'olam olomei olmayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shmei d'kudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata na'amiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. The God who makes peace in the heavens, make peace among us, the whole house of Israel and all of humanity. And we say, Amen. Thank you all for being here. Our service is complete. You may go in peace.